All right, good evening, everyone. Rory Johnston here in the hosting chair for OpenLine tonight on News Channel 5 Plus. Thanks for tuning in tonight on this Thursday night. An important topic to discuss, one that we have discussed several times here on News Channel 5 Plus. One of those topics that we talk about over on our main channel, News Channel 5, during newscasts, but it really needs more time, and that's why we're so glad to have this platform here on the Plus to provide to you, the viewer. We want you to call in. We want your comments and questions tonight as we talk about rapid transit, the future of transit here in Nashville. You remember just a few weeks ago we had folks from MTA and RTA, the Metro Transit Authority and Regional Transit Authority, here on OpenLine to discuss plans, big plans for what's called AMP, or the BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit Plan, which is going to run from the 5 Points area over in East Nashville all the way through West End. This is a planned development for, as we say, bus rapid transit. 2 lanes right in the middle of West End, dedicated just to buses. There's a lot more to it. We'll discuss it, but a lot of folks are concerned about this. And we want to welcome tonight Lonnie Spivak and Rick Williams. Both are with the group StopAMP.org. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Let's just start right off with what concerns do you have about this proposal?
Well, before we start off, I just want to make sure that people know that we're not against mass transit.
Sure.
I mean, that's not what we're about.
You don't want to go back to horse and buggies.
We don't want to go back to horse and buggies. Right. We're not against mass transit in the city of Nashville. But what we just think we need to take a better look at where to put it. West End is such a heavily trafficked corridor. To reduce the travel lanes for automobile traffic by a third, those cars have to go somewhere, and plus the impact for the businesses and the residents in the area. We just feel like there may be better opportunities and better locations for mass transit in Nashville.
You agree, Rick?
I agree 100%. You know, I'm up and down West End quite a bit every day. I don't know where you'll put another. It's going to displace 18,000 cars. So where are those 18,000 cars going to go? It's just going to back up further and further. Their own study, MTA's own study they filed with the federal government, says from day one, travel time doubles the day it opens for the automobile. So that gives me grave concern.
Sure. 737-PLUS is the phone number, everybody. 737-7587. If you'd like to call in, we do want to hear from you. We have wide open lines right now, so be sure to call in during this hour because this really impacts so many people when you think about that corridor, and not just the West End area we're talking about. This is a plan, like I said, from East Nashville all the way to the St. Thomas area. Is that right?
Yeah, there'll be like a bus turnaround over there by St. Thomas, and I guess there'll be a lot of parking right there. But there's not a lot of parking along the route, and then there's a spot in the 5 Points area for cars to park. And one of the things that really kind of has us concerned is it's really more than just 2 lanes. Down the middle of West End. So there's 2 dedicated lanes for the buses, one going eastbound, one going westbound. But every half mile, there'll be a further lane reduction because they need a place to put the bus stop.
Right.
So every half mile, they're going to be putting a bus stop for riders to get on and off. So it'll cause a choke point, I think starting about 35th Avenue and then going about every half mile down to 5th Avenue. So it's just a lot more traffic concerns and a lot bigger impact than just right there on West End.
Now, a lot of study and research, though, went into this. Is that true, or you don't believe that there's enough? That's a myth?
When they talk about an alternative study they did, they didn't study routes. They picked this route. This has been the one they picked and went with from day one. When the alternative study they did, or they call it an alternative analysis, is the form of transportation, whether it be rail, whether it be bus, like that. But there was never an alternative study. I wish they would do that. We would welcome a study of the routes, possible other routes they could use.
Just using, common kind of traffic sense, though, that is one of the most heavily traveled areas. Why not pick that route? Or what are some other areas that
it's
might...
traveled by automobile heavily, though.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, and we don't see that corridor being people that are going to get out of their car and get on the bus. You already have heavily traveled bus usage on Murfreesboro Road, Gallatin Road, Charlotte. All those would be prime opportunities to try
Lots
this.
of other these key spokes.
Right.
That run toward town.
Something also to remember when you're looking at West End. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure everybody has traveled up down that corridor. It's pretty congested now as it is. It's pretty start and stop, and so then you have to remember there's not going to be any left turns, or there'll be left turns only at dedicated areas, and then there'll be forced U-turns if you have a place that you need to get to on it. There'll be, we've heard from a lot of people who live in the area that they're concerned on what the overflow of traffic is going to do to their neighborhoods, because you're talking about, 16, 18,000 cars in a day. I mean,
people are going to
they
be
gotta
looking
go
for ways
somewhere.
around it.
And then heaven forbid there's an accident on it, because the plan calls for the lanes to be even more narrow, the car lanes to even be more narrow down the, and so if there's an accident right through there, then what do you do? I mean, there's no real places for the emergency vehicles to go. There's, then it's just, it'll be backed up to Bellevue from there.
Sure. All right, let's take a couple of calls that have come in, and we do encourage you to call in. Let's go to Nancy first. Hi, Nancy.
How are you tonight, Rory?
Doing well. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
I would like to know one thing.
Yeah.
Has there ever been any sort of reputable study done that shows how they're going to convert people to ride this bus system when the buses running up and down West End now are virtually empty? What makes them think that people are going to switch from one set of buses to another set of buses?
Sure.
It is the most stupid thing I've ever heard in my lifetime.
All right, Nancy, thank you.
To our knowledge, there hasn't been a reputable study. There's been the study from the MPOs, the Metro Planning Organizations, and the Regional Transit Alliance, I believe. And they say that people will get on the ends of this thing and then ride it because it'll just be quicker and more convenient. But you have to remember, I mean, the average travel speed of the bus is going to be about 15 miles an hour because it stops every half mile, lets people on and off. And then not to mention, you'll have to find a place to park. So if you live in Sylvan Park area, and you're about a half a mile from the route, you're going to either walk a half a mile or you're going to have to drive your car somewhere, and there's no place to park. So even if you were coming in from Bellevue, you'd have to ride in, find a place to park, get on it's just not going to be faster.
Sure. All right. Good question, Nancy. We appreciate it. 737+, the phone number to call. Let's go to Bill on line 2. Hi, Bill.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Was curious as to if anyone has looked at a map of Nashville to see the railroads radiating out from the central area. We've got railroads, and the only railroad that's in use for passenger traffic is from Lebanon. It would make, to me, a lot more sense to make use of the railroad that's already there than to go create something, a roadblock on West End that West End doesn't need. Thank you.
Okay.
We would heartily agree with that. We think it's almost a no-brainer if you look at the spokes running out of downtown. I don't know how they would have to work with CSX and develop a system. We think that's a more natural system to use. I mean, we already have a land port. Originally, there was some plan, I think, to do rail, and I don't know what happened to that, but that, to me, would be an ideal situation.
One thing I would like to say about the Music City Star is, I don't know, it's a little contentious for me because mainly it's people from Wilson County who are riding it, but it's being completely funded by Davidson County residents. So that's one thing. And they've been in operation for 5 years, and they still haven't hit their projections for ridership. And the citizens of Davidson County already subsidize it to the tune of $1.5 million a year. So the number of people they have riding it don't even pay for the operation of it.
Right.
So
why have so many people, key people, including the mayor and council members, approved this plan? Why do you think?
I think the council went along with the mayor because they're not aware of all the details to it, quite frankly. And when they talk about an alternative analysis, I don't think they've ever exactly said that we didn't do an alternative analysis of different routes. I know North Nashville is begging for it to come down Charlotte, and there are a lot of citizens in the North Nashville area that think it should go down Charlotte. So I think the mayor needs to reconsider and really do a serious study about a route if he's going to try to go this way. Again, I think there's better ways to spend the money and maybe make the whole system better. We feel like there are a lot of underserved areas now in Metro, and there are people who would like to see the money spent that way.
Yeah, and we're talking about a lot of money.
A lot of money. $175 million project, $65 million from Metro taxpayers, $35 million at the state level, and $75 million federal grant.
I just want to, what the Metro Council, though, approved was $7.5 million for further engineering studies. So they didn't necessarily approve the full project. They approved $7.5 million to fund further engineering studies if the Federal Transit Authority approves Nashville as a project location.
That's a big if, which we're going to talk about
Yes.
at length after this break. Everybody, we got one caller on hold, and then wide open lines if you'd like to call in and talk about the AMP or Bus Rapid Transit Plan for Nashville. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Hold your thought. Lucy, we'll be right with you next minute, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay, we're back on a Thursday night here on Open Line. I'm Rory Johnston, along with our guests tonight, Lonnie Spivak and Rick Williams, with the group StopAMP.org, which obviously is Stop AMP is the group, and the website is StopAMP.org, I should say. Let's go right back to the phones here and talk with Lucy, who's called in. Hi, Lucy.
Hey, I've got a question.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got an idea, and I've got an opinion. I always have an opinion.
That's fine. We like that. Go ahead.
Okay, this whole transit system in Nashville has
Yep.
gotten, the more they touch it, the more it gets screwed up. The gentleman that called earlier and said about how Metro taxpayers support Wilson County riders that come in, I've argued that for years. When they cut the bus systems into neighborhoods where the people in the neighborhoods had to walk through dangerous neighborhoods to the main streets at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, to catch the bus because they couldn't run them a few blocks into the neighborhood, they took that money to give it to the people that were coming in on the train to drop them off right at the door where they worked and to give them free coffee in the morning when they got off the train. And I saw that for myself. And for some reason or another, this so-called Midtown has become the center of town. But I talk to people on a daily basis. I stop at the I-40 McDonald's at Old Hickory Boulevard,
Yeah.
and I ask those McDonald's people, you know, you're a good worker. Why can't you go into town, or why can't you go across town and get a better job? They said the bus. There is a plethora of apartment buildings at Old Hickory Boulevard and I-40, and when the bus gets off, it shoots straight over to the Music City Star pickup. And they have to walk way out of their way early in the morning to go catch that bus. None of the buses come into the neighborhood. I think the best thing is what the guy said about Nashville being a spoke. The best thing for the AMP, if you want to use rapid transit, you can't go back and fix what we did to Nashville starting in the 40s when we sold out to the big three in Detroit, taking away the rail systems that we had. I think the best thing for AMP is to put it on OHB and speed it around the city and let people connect buses and points in. And the people who are really going to use it, because they don't have a car and they're really dependent on it as a way to make a living and eat and not to get back and forth to a bar. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just how I feel.
That's
but
all
I
right.
think that this is just another waste of money that's just going to suck more money off of our transit system and make it worse. I rode the bus system in Nashville on the free days, and it benefits me none. I talk to people who are trying to get to work on the weekends that have no cars and nobody to get them around, and the buses don't run on the weekends. There's a man I met out on Livingston Road that sells the Contributor, and he's all lame, but he walks for almost over a mile on the weekends, backwards and forwards, to sell his paper there at Walmart because the buses do not run on the weekend. I mean, I can go on and on and
okay.
on. When they say mass transit, who are the masses?
Good point. All right, Lucy, we're going to just stop you right there because, like she said, she's got an opinion. She wants it heard. And what do you guys think?
I think she's right. I mean,
She's right.
Yeah.
You know, the city and the mayor, they're calling the project the AMP now, and we kind of joke that it stands for another mismanaged project. So we completely agree. We feel like there are a lot of different opportunities to improve mass transit in the city of Nashville. We just don't feel that this is it.
So, want to talk a little bit about the city of Cleveland, because when the officials were on here on OpenLine recently, they kept talking about Cleveland being the model for their rapid transit system. And what's going on in Cleveland, and why is it not the perfect model for
What makes
Nashville?
it different for us is our city's not on a grid, right?
Right.
We have kind of streets going every which way. So where Cleveland, they have like their eastbound bus, they only have one lane of traffic taken up on that whole block. And then on the westbound bus, they use a whole nother block, a block over. So they're able to use their grid system to their advantage to really minimize the impact of automobile traffic. And that's a huge difference when you're talking about reducing travel lanes by really a third of their capacity, because even if they say there's 2 lanes and sometimes they narrow to 3, you know, it expands to 3 lanes, you have to figure that it's going to continuously take up the 3 lanes of traffic because it's going to continually choke people over every
Sure.
half mile. So
737 plus is the phone number to call, by the way, and also we'll take your comments on Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead.
well,
Sorry,
what I was
Rick.
going to say is what he's talking about at the corner of Murphy Road and West End.
Yep.
The Department of Transportation, the state of Tennessee, counts 48,000 cars through there.
And that's where the gas station is,
Yeah,
right
the Exxon right
Yep,
there.
right
That
Yep.
point right
That
there, there's
turnoff.
48,000 cars. So you're averaging on an inbound day 16,000 in each lane. You're going to do away with one lane. So where are those cars going to go? I mean, it's just that it doesn't take it rocket science. It doesn't take an engineer to figure out. It's going to be a nightmare. It's bad enough as it is in the afternoon and mornings getting in with 3 lanes pretty much wide open. Now, the other point there, too, is that if you're narrowing it to 2 lanes, then the regular bus is still going to run a route.
Right.
So the regular bus that comes in and stops everywhere from Bellevue all the way into town, he's going to be in the right lane also, making stops.
See, that's something. That,
So now you're
okay.
down to one really true through lane there. So I think that makes a big difference. I just think it hadn't been thought through well. Like the lady said, I think we could take, even if we didn't have the federal money, let's just say we get the state money and the metro money, we take $100 million, I think we can improve our transit system to better help those that need it and want it and can use it.
all around.
All around.
All around.
Exactly.
Again, 737+ if you'd like to call in and comment like Nancy and Bill and Lucy have so far. We appreciate those phone calls. How did this group start, Stop AMP, and who comprises it? I know that there's a number of folks in various neighborhoods. I've seen, I believe, Brenda Gilmore and other officials who are very, very concerned. Tell us a little bit about those who not necessarily are opposed, but are definitely concerned and raising their hand saying, let's hold on a minute.
Well, there's a group in North Nashville, and Representative Gilmore, I would say, would be the leader of that group. And she's just saying, look, give us, take a look over here. What's wrong with this? Why can't it go down Charlotte? Or why can't you better serve
The people
all
in
of
that
Nashville in general? And so there's a group over there. Our group is composed of all walks of life from all different, there's no certain group there. We got together really by kind of happenstance, and one started talking to the other, said, yeah, I'm opposed to it, and I'm opposed to it.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we decide to have meetings and go from there.
In Brenda Gilmore's case, she brings up specifically the North Nashville area and within perhaps her district and others where there's a significantly lower income population, folks who need assistance,
Right.
need city services. Really, they rely on these city services, especially transportation and busing.
Yes, sir.
Why are they not getting the services that a lot of folks believe that they deserve or that they should be getting?
Well, I mean, I don't think...
Is it just out of balance right now?
I think it's out of balance, and I don't think Rick and I could speak to why the
overall,
MTA is doing it. But we do feel that the poor and minority communities are being underserved. And, the West End corridor was really chosen mainly because of federal dollars. They worked with the Metro Council, and they were able to get some property rezoned, and so now they are able to show future populations to a density significant enough to support a bus rapid transit. We don't necessarily believe we already have the population in place. If we had 3,000 riders a day on that system, I'd be surprised. But we have about 650,000 people in the city of Nashville, and I doubt more than 1%, or maybe less than 2% for sure, actually ride the Metro buses.
All right, let's go back to the phones, everybody, and we'll welcome Scott. Hi, Scott.
Good evening, Rory. Thanks for having me.
Sure, go ahead. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to call and say I'm a supporter of the AMP project. I think it's a program transit need in the community. It's long overdue, and I really believe that the West End corridor is the best place to start. Not only does it connect some of our major institutions to our service workers, communities, but it connects several universities together, the medical districts together. It really puts us in the best position to get the federal dollars, like was just mentioned. I think that some of the engineering issues that are being described can be argued the other direction as far as limiting left turns. The reality is that can actually create a better traffic flow.
Scott, let me interrupt you real quick and ask you. Obviously, we know that that's an important corridor, one of several in town. But what about Rick and Lonnie's concern about the car traffic? Where are you going to put the cars that are displaced by the buses? That's a key argument here, right?
Sure, and I think that the numbers that they're putting out as far as the 13,000 or 16,000, I'm not sure how many cars per lane. They're assuming that number of cars is going through on that lane. We all know that the third lane of West End is only operated during peak hours, and even then, there are trucks turning into driveways, people turning out. Sometimes cars are parked there illegally, even though they're not supposed to be. So that lane is truly not used at its full capacity at any given time during the peak period. So I think that number may be a little bit overestimated as far as the reality. But the idea is to displace some of those users, the vehicular riders, onto the buses. But the reality is, are you going to replace every vehicle that currently uses West End to the bus? Well, no, you're not. But the thing is, if you don't do something now, then when do you do it? Traffic's only going to continue to increase in Nashville as our population grows. How much longer before the vehicular traffic doubles in the corridor, and then what do you do then? So I think the AMP project is something to set into place the opportunity for people to start using transit and creates alternative options for people to get out of their cars. And the flip side of that is the other corridors that have been mentioned, Charlotte and other parallel corridors, could be more utilized than they are today. And therefore, increasing possible economic development opportunities along Charlotte, which is one of the arguments that was presented to push the AMP to Charlotte, was it would create more of an economic boom along that corridor. But the West End corridor is definitely the most suitable location, in my opinion.
All right, let's hold right there. We have to take a break. Thank you for the call, Scott, and I know these guys want to respond to that. We're going to let them, but we do have to take a quick break. We'll do that right after this. Open Line will be right back. Segment, we're going to let them answer. I want to talk a little bit about federal money, and then we're going to run the video. Okay.
4, 3, 2.
Okay, we're back, everybody. We heard from Scott, who thought this is a good idea, and I know we wanted to give you both a chance to respond to some of the things he said.
First, I'd like to say, there is a way that, it does connect parts of West End, but let's just say you want it to get over to Vanderbilt Hospital. You had a need to get over to Vanderbilt. And so you'd have to, depending on where you're coming, let's just say you're coming from the 5 Points area. So you hop on you drive over to the 5 Points, you get on the bus, you ride the bus into Vanderbilt. And so you get off at Centennial Park, and then what?
Right.
You wait for another, is there a connector bus? How are they running connections? How do you get to St. Thomas? How do you get to Vanderbilt? So, to say that it connects the schools and the hospitals may not be completely accurate. It gets you, within a certain period of time. And we were at a meeting a few weeks ago over at Christ the King where a guy said, I have 2 daughters who go to Meigs. How does this help me? They lived in the West End area, and it says it takes their kids an hour to ride the public bus to Meigs. And he goes, well, they would get on at one of these stops over here, which is about a half mile from their house. So they're either walking or being dropped off there. They'd ride, through the whole thing, stopping every half mile to get down to Meigs. And then it drops them 2 blocks away. So, and I've got a 12-year-old who goes to Meigs too. And I'm not sure depending on what time of day, whether it was early morning or late in the afternoon, if she had after school activities, if I'd necessarily want them walking by themselves, the extra distance. So, it does connect east and west technically, but we have a lot of cross traffic. and it doesn't necessarily serve the cross traffic. It gets you east and west, but it doesn't get you north and south, and that's one of the big problems with it.
You want to add to
Well,
it? Rick?
just taking up what he was saying about how West End is so. I mean, Charlotte. The argument for Charlotte can be made just as well. You've got the brand new public health center going up on Charlotte.
Right.
You've got some affordable housing on Charlotte. You've got 2 hospitals that would be served by it on Charlotte. So, I mean, just the fact that it's West End is
Right.
better than Charlotte, it doesn't hold water.
And
What
you do
about
actually have some room to expand the road there if you
In
needed
Charlotte.
to.
Yeah, a little
so
more than
where,
you would on
So
West
where the
End, yeah.
buses could be on the outside lanes instead of right in the middle of the road.
What about his argument about some of the numbers, the figures as far as
Well,
cars per lane,
The numbers we give you are from the state Tennessee Department of Transportation.
their own studies?
Yeah, they. I mean, that's straight from the state figures.
737 plus, everybody, if you'd like to call in to discuss this issue. One of the arguments made is this is just a start. You know, let's start on West End. They believe this is the most important corridor, and then this is going to be successful, and then we'll branch out to other corridors.
Yeah, my argument to that is West End corridor is the only one they looked at because that's the only one they can get federal funds for. Not that it makes the most sense, but that's the one they could get federal funding for. We still think that if we use TDOT money and maybe some local money and just approve the transit as a whole, it just, when you look at all of the impact for 1% of the bus riders, it's $25 million a mile for 7 miles.
Right.
And the CBO said in 2012 that a bus rapid transit with dedicated lanes should cost between $2 and $10 million a mile.
Okay.
And ours is 25.
What about this federal money? There's a lot of questions about whether or not this might even come through, the federal money at this point, for a variety of reasons. But I know Congressman Cooper has raised some concerns about what's going on in Washington right now with the budget, and this money is not guaranteed.
No, it's not. It's not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. There are many hurdles that the MTA still has to overcome to even qualify for the money. And as as Congressman Cooper said himself, he's not even sure the money's going to be available. And some other people have stated, they've been to a lot of these community meetings they've had, but it seems like the only people for the project are the people in the very front of the room telling you about it. I mean, especially out the West End corridor, there was not much consensus at all. The consensus was opposed to it.
But why not? Why can't we attract federal dollars for these other areas?
The federal rules for it are based completely off population and densities.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons why the Metro Council rezoned such a large area of the West End kind of downtown area for high-rise buildings and such, because they needed to show a future density. And then one of the other things, I know it's kind of bouncing back, but where Cleveland and the other areas that have the BRTs that are successful, they have dedicated funding sources. So in Nashville and Tennessee, we wouldn't have a dedicated funded source. So after the federal money ran out, after the construction, there's no way for us to maintain it without adding to our property taxes or doing some new TIF funding. And the mayor's been kind of vague. They haven't really said how they're going to fund the project, even the initial part, and much less going forward.
Okay. I want to show a video that we showed last time we were here. This is a produced video, almost 4 minutes long, describing, in case you're trying to picture this in your head or you haven't read articles about it, describing exactly what the AMP would look like and what it's supposed to do. This is from the MTA. We'll show that and we'll get some reaction. Let's go ahead and roll that video.
Welcome to the AMP, the region's first bus rapid transit system with dedicated lanes, which will connect the east and west sides of Nashville and transform how we move through the heart of our city. This smart transit technology combines the experience of rail with the cost-effectiveness of express buses. It provides a fast, convenient, and affordable alternative to traveling by car. Running from 5 points in East Nashville to St. Thomas Hospital in West Nashville, the AMP's route is our city's main street. It is well traveled by commuters and regional residents. And through the connection at Music City Central, all areas of the region can access this important corridor. The AMP will provide a safe, easy, and reliable way for people to travel to work, doctor's appointments, restaurants, sports and music events, and other daily life activities. Let's take a trip on the AMP, starting at the St. Thomas station. Passengers will find the AMP easy to use. Stations will be well lit, safe, and weather protected. Passengers may view maps and time schedules, purchase tickets at self-serve kiosks, and check real-time arrival and departure information. High-tech vehicles will feature level boarding with dual sliding doors to allow passengers to enter and exit quickly. Bicyclists may store their bikes at the station or secure them on board. Vehicles are designed for comfort and convenience with wide aisles and seats. Once aboard, passengers may relax and visit or access the vehicle's Wi-Fi. Stations are located roughly every 1/2 mile throughout the corridor, providing an easy connection for riders coming from neighborhoods, MTA bus routes, or employee shuttles. The AMP will travel in dedicated lanes and will use signal prioritization to speed up the trip and travel faster than a car stuck in traffic. Eastward from the Elmington Park station, the AMP will be running in the center of the street, with stations located in the median. Streetscape improvements at the stations will include wide, marked crosswalks, enhanced pedestrian and vehicular paving, and other elements to let everyone know they are entering a transit area. The corridor continues along West End Avenue, past the northern edge of Vanderbilt University, before merging with Broadway as it approaches downtown Nashville. The AMP has arrived at the historic Broadway station near the Bridgestone Arena and Convention Center. This quick and convenient trip from St. Thomas to Bridgestone Arena will take 17 minutes on the AMP. Compare this to the 28-minute trip by car, and the time savings will only increase in the future. The AMP is a great way for tourists to get from the convention center or major hotels to entertainment venues and restaurants along the corridor. Nearly 11 million people visit Music City every year. Rapid transit will be critical to Nashville's tourism economy. After the AMP leaves the historic Broadway station, the route continues through the downtown business district before continuing to East Nashville. The last stop at the east end of the corridor will be the 5 Point station. Here, the AMP will run on both sides of the street and provide great opportunities to generate new transit-oriented development along the way. The AMP will make it easy, fast, and convenient to travel to work, favorite restaurants, and appointments. It's a smart investment in Nashville's future.
Okay, so that's the video. The last time that we showed that video, we were here with a couple of representatives from MTA. One of them is their Director of Communications, their spokesperson, and that is Patricia Harris-Moorhead, and she joins us now on the phone. Hi, Patricia. Good to hear from you.
Hi, Rory. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for calling in. We're trying to give everyone a voice in this process, so go right ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate this opportunity for you all to share information regarding this innovative project that we are planning for the city of Nashville. There have been a number of inaccurate pieces of information that have been given out on the show tonight and throughout the community about this project. And the first thing I want to say is we invite people to learn the facts. They can visit the Transit Alliance website for information on this project, or they can visit the Nashville MTA's website on this project for up-to-date information on how things are progressing. So that is the reason that I call, to encourage the public to learn what is occurring with this project and to learn what's happening with transportation in our city. One of your callers mentioned that we didn't have anybody riding the buses. Well, you know, that's a myth. We in the Middle Tennessee area, we've had more than 10 million passenger trips in the last fiscal year, and we're looking at the numbers for the close of this fiscal year because we're going to exceed the record that we set the previous fiscal year. So people are looking for other alternatives to get around our city, and that's why we're seeing more people coming in from the suburbs on the RTA buses, as well as more people using our local MTA services. But another point that has been discussed is the corridor. Why was this West End corridor selected? This corridor was looked at because this area is considered our main street in the Middle Tennessee area. In the near future, as we mentioned before when we were on the show, we're going to have more than 1 million new residents moving into the area, and we need to look at other alternatives to move people up and down that main corridor. And so that's why this particular corridor was looked at. And those are just some of the key points that I wanted to share with you all tonight.
And when you were on the program, Patricia, we did talk about this perhaps leading to other transit systems, rapid transit systems in other corridors in the future. Is that right?
That is correct. We want to get it right this first time, and we've spent the last several years looking at this corridor. Back in 2011, we completed our alternatives analysis, and the recommendation was that this corridor needed a rapid transit system. We examined light rail, we examined an urban streetcar, and we determined that a rapid bus system would serve this corridor just as well. And it would be less costly than, an urban streetcar or light rail. And so we have just completed the preliminary engineering and environmental phase, and we are getting ready to look at this third phase where we will do, final design and engineering for the project. And we are also working on our federal application to FTA for the funds so that the project can go forward.
Sure.
We have to start somewhere, and if we're successful with this first rapid transit system, we'll be looking at other corridors such as Charlotte and Nolensville Pike, so that we can have other rapid transit systems across the area. We have to do something because soon we're going to create even more gridlock in our city, and we're just going to run out of roadway. So we have to find another solution to get people around our city.
Patricia, thank you for calling in. We really appreciate it.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Have a good night. I know you both want to jump in. I hate to do this to you again, but we're going to take a break.
Okay.
They got their notes ready. They want to jump in and discuss this a little bit. We'll come back with our final full segment here on Open Line after this. Okay, we heard from Patricia Harris Moorhead just now on the phone. We appreciate her calling in. Respond. Rick?
Well, I'd just like to say I wish there would have been a real alternative analysis done. What she was saying, the alternative analysis was the form of transportation, light rail, bus, etc. We'd like to see an alternative analysis done of the potential other routes, because we think there are better routes that this could go on than where it's going. It doesn't help.
She said this is determined to be kind of Nashville's main street. That's why they're looking at this.
Well, it's fixing to be a very clogged up main street for sure.
Yeah, the businesses and the people who live through there just won't be happy with the result.
We haven't talked a little bit about the businesses real quick too. You've gone in and talked to some business owners all along that corridor, and some of them said they didn't even know about it.
I have. I've talked to a lot of business owners from the interstate, White Castle, Interstate 40 right there, all the way out to, I guess as far out as Murphy Road. 10 Angel, Discount Liquors, Margiano's. I can just keep naming them. Nobody's come and talked to them. Lee Beeman, he didn't know about it. He probably has his biggest tract of land along the route. Nobody from the city had come and said, hey, we're fixing to change your world. We're fixing to have it where people can't turn left into your business. Or, I mean, it's just like if they hadn't heard about it through the news media, they wouldn't even know about it. Some of these people have been in these businesses 40, 50 years. You know, Valentino's will have their valet parking. They'll have no parking. I mean, so it's a big change for businesses, and we've not contacted any of them. They're all very concerned about the future of their businesses on that corridor.
Did you want to add something, Lonnie?
Well, I just kind of wanted to maybe comment on a few things that Ms. Moorhead said. Yeah, I mean, she said, and you know, I remember Jim McIntyre saying that number 2, 10 million riders in the Middle Tennessee area. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean Nashville. That could be a pretty big area. But one of the things in Nashville that happened, I don't know, several years ago when they wanted to increase the ridership on the Metro buses, they made it where Metro employees and state employees can ride for free. So many of the people who are riding the Music City Star and the Metro buses ride for free. And I think they've worked out some deal with Vanderbilt where Vanderbilt employees ride for free. I think Vanderbilt maybe pays a fee or something, some kind of subscription service or something. But many of the people who are riding the bus are being subsidized by the taxpayers of Nashville. And, you know, we think if they're going to do this, maybe the people of Nashville should even just be able to have some kind of say, some kind of vote, even down the road as to what they think is the best idea for mass transit in Nashville.
Let's go to Adam, who's called in on line 1. Adam, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to say something in favor of the AMP, which is that 2 lanes of automobile traffic will be maintained on West End in both directions, which is the current amount of lanes for automobile traffic up and down that corridor. And 25,000 passengers are projected to ride the BRT every week. So that's new customers to all the businesses. Thank you.
Okay. Projected.
Yeah, projected is the key word there.
Yeah.
It's projected. I mean, you know.
Well, like I said, Music City Star hasn't met their projections, and they've been operating for 5 years. And that's not actually true. I mean, on West End right now, there's 3 lanes of traffic going inbound during rush hour, and there's 3 lanes of traffic going outbound during rush hour. So when you are physically taking a lane out and you're narrowing them, making it harder for, you know, trucks and larger vehicles to even make it through the
Right, so it's going to be a narrowing of the existing lanes to put those 2 lanes in the middle.
Yeah.
Don't forget the regular bus. He's still going to be in that right lane.
Right.
So you've narrowed it to 2, and plus you've got a regular bus in the right lane.
Tell us a little more about Stop AMP, and you know, you said this is a group of just people who met up and said, hey, wait a minute, I'm concerned about this. And if people at home want to get involved, whether they want to join your group or not, they just want to have a say and learn more about this, which obviously is important, right?
Yeah, the first thing I'd like to say, if there's any homeowners groups or any associations or neighborhood organizations that like for us to come out, we're happy to do so. The best way to reach us is through our website, stopamp.org. There's places where you can request a yard sign or more information, or just contact us through the website.
Rick, are there any planned meetings coming up for this group, or is it truly grassroots?
It's truly grassroots. We have a loosely knit group of volunteers that kind of are the steering committee of this, and we meet about every other week, and we just keep going forward. We're getting requests for yard signs every day on our website, and we've taken donations. We're still taking donations for, some people have reached in their own pocket and helped pay for the yard signs and stuff. So we're just moving it along. It's truly a grassroots volunteer organization.
We are in the process of starting a C4 organization. It's, not that donations would be tax deductible, but they would be private.
Sure.
We feel like there may be some legal challenges and some other things down the road, and the yard signs cost money and the mailings cost money, and if you don't feel like this is best for Nashville, we'd like for you to reach out to us, contact us through the website, and together I think that we'll be able to save that corridor.
And we just have a couple of minutes left here before our next break, but Rick, Patricia mentioned that they've just wrapped up, I think, phase 3, which was the engineering part. Now they're going into...
They're going into phase 3.
They're going into phase 3, I should say. Sorry,
I think
wrapped
that's
up
what she
phase
said.
2. Is there any way of stopping this, or is this a done deal?
Oh, it's a long way from being approved. The FDA has to approve it, and everybody has to be on board. The state has not committed the $35 million part of this yet. There's a lot of
TDOT
questions.
Commissioner John Schroer has some concerns
He has a lot of
as well,
concerns
right?
He has a
about
lot
the
of
impact
concerns.
on car traffic
Yes.
through that corridor.
Technically, is that a state roadway?
It's a state road, yes, and so there's still some issues. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty going forward at this point. I would not say the AMP is a done deal by any means.
What are the politics behind this and the implications politically? Are there some folks putting their necks on the line here, or?
This is kind of one of those issues that's not Republican or Democrat. It's one of those things where people in different areas have different expectations for mass transit, and the people who live down West End and through Westmead into downtown, they have a low expectation for mass transit. They have very little need for it. The people in Belmead and West End aren't going to give up their cars. The students are they're migratory, so they're in and out. It's really the residents of Davidson County who are going to pay the biggest fee in time delays and the price tag for this thing.
And obviously, everyone's concerned about congestion, though.
Yeah.
And that we need to do something about it.
And like I said at the beginning, we're not against mass transit. We just don't think that this is the best plan to solve the problem.
Okay. And so the more people who are educated about this and hear about it, know about it, then they can make up their minds and
Absolutely.
We think so.
Join up. Okay. We hope you learned something. Adam, thanks for that final call. Thanks to all of our callers tonight. Again, we're trying to present all sides here, and I'm sure this is an issue that's not going away anytime soon. We're going to take our final break, everybody. When we come back, have a pen and paper handy. We'll just refresh your memory on how to contact Stop AMP. We'll be right back.
Tomorrow's getting a lot
Here
of
we go.
traction out.
4, 3, 2.
All right, everybody. Once again, thanks to our callers, and we want to thank Lonnie Spivak and Rick Williams. I'm saying Spivak, right?
You got it.
All right. Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
After, I'm sure, a regular workday, you came in to discuss this. If you would like to contact their group, there it is, right there on our screen. It's stopamp.org. Stopamp.org. And stay tuned to News Channel 5 on our website. Of course, we're following this issue as it progresses and trying to give you the best coverage as possible and some objective coverage of both the grassroots groups and also officially what is happening. All right, stay tuned for Southern Woods and Waters, everybody. Hugh McNaughton is live right here in the studio to talk about Region 3. Right, Hugh? Region 3. Region 3. Center Hill, Dale Hollow, all that good stuff. Have a great night. So long.
Yes, sir. I can hear you great, brother. 10-9-8-7-6-5-4-3-2. Next guest is Bobby. Count up to 10.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We're all good. That's a neat. Now he made them with the Colorado blades.
Yeah.
So we were catching big spots on Center Hill with this thing.
Yeah.
You throw it up against that bluff and just let a helicopter down, it'd never make it to the bottom.
Really?
Yeah. Those big old spots just tear them up.
Good fish management.
Good fish management. and then got to where we was catching small ones.
Oh.
On the ends, especially on the ends of the bluff.
Yeah.
Right there we met the pea gravel on Center Hill. Wham! So we went to Dale Hollow. He and I went to Dale Hollow. And we went with Bobby Gentry. Thanks, Rory. Y'all have a great evening. And so we went to Dale Hollow, and Chris and I caught 3 smallmouth apiece at night on big, huge spinnerbaits and red brush hogs.
Those big spinnerbaits at night, man. That's dum, 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 dum.
So good. But nobody else caught anything. So it wasn't that we're that good. It's just
the right bait.
With the right bait, the right time.
place, yeah.
And so everybody was talking about the health of the fishery. We went where, what is it called? What's right in front of Hendricks Creek? If you go out in front of Hendricks Creek, you take a left, and you got that Accordion Bluff over there.
Yeah.
The 2 islands before you get to Accordion, on your right.
That's not over in.
It's big and little something. Big.
No. Big and what?
Big. Is it Big Bear and Little Bear?
I heard them. That's over around. It's the opposite side of Pulsey Flats over there.
Yeah.
It's
right beside Accordion Bluff.
I don't know what they call those 2 islands right there.
Well, we got in between.
First, yeah.
And in front of the little island, on the back side of the little island, is a flat.
Yeah.
And it's 11 foot deep, and it's got grass that's 9 foot tall.
You got 5 seconds.
Really?
It is awesome.
Till 8 o'clock.
Got 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
But it is full of fish.
Is it like a ditch or just a flat? I mean, does it break?
It's a flat on top, and it breaks off of both sides.
So they
right there, it's where the little island meets that other little island, and it's just a ridge that goes up.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's all got grass on it.
Yeah. That place is coochie grass right there.
I fished there with Danny before.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
There's coochie stuff you get there in the winter time.
I thought we were going to have to take a number to get a place.
15.
It wasn't. And we put that spook on it first thing in the morning.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
And welcome everyone to this Thursday night's edition of Southern Woods and Waters, and we hope that you had a great July 4th week. We got to take a little vacation ourselves. Andrew decided to go south somewhere. I decided to hang around here and go to Dale Hollow. And speaking of Dale Hollow, we've got our show is based on Region 3 fisheries, Dale Hollow being one of them, Center Hill, Chickamauga. And instead of you getting information from this or that, or from this one, or Doc Talk here, Doc Talk there, or Marina Talk, I would say let's go straight to horse's mouth, but I'm not calling either one of these guys horses. Now, let's go straight to their mouth because these two guys know exactly what's going on, and that's why they're on the show. Let's broaden out a little bit, introduce our guest to you. Bobby Wilson. Bobby, you the man.
Hello, Hugh.
I tell you what, Bobby is a great, he's the supervisor over all the fisheries across the state. He's the chief of fisheries. So it's his job to make sure that Region 1, Region 2, 3, and 4 are all doing well. Right. And if not, you got to answer to mad fishermen. But
when things are going great, I take credit.
That's right, and things are looking good.
Yeah.
They are doing real well. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But with him is Mike Jolly. Mike Jolly is a supervisor over the fisheries in Region 3. And that's what we want to talk about tonight is Dale Hollow, Center Hill, Chickamauga. Those are all great fisheries. They are. And we want to talk a little bit about it. The reason that we brought the show about like this is I contacted Bobby, and I told Bobby, I said, Bobby, there's a little bit of concern up here on Dale Hollow, especially from Hendricks Creek Resort. They're one of our fine sponsors here on the show. But some of the guys there, Bobby Gentry and a few of the guys that are out of there, we're a little bit concerned about some of the talk going around about Dale Hollow Lake and the smallmouth. Mm-hmm. Now, Mike, I'm gonna jump right in and let you get started just a little bit. We've heard, and I'm not going to point fingers, but we've heard as much as 40% of the smallmouth died off on Dale Hollow.
Yeah, Hugh, those rumors are unfounded, and we've been doing a lot of investigations, and this 2011 on Dale Hollow was just a banner year. The Marines were calling, and the anglers and the guys, and it's just talking about how great it was. And in 2012, started about mid-July, our personnel that does some roe and creel surveys had noticed some dead smallmouth, and there was some